G'day folks, following on from our delve guide, here's another beginner's guide to making some decent currency in Path of Exile. This time we'll be farming essences. This has a low barrier to entry and very solid profit. Essences can also be easily sold in bulk for one divine at a time if you want to limit the amount of trades you have to do, so it's a pretty convenient one to integrate into your strategy overall. Essences are fully profitable in tier 1 maps, and there's no real difference between tier 1 or tier 16 as far as the essences you'll get are concerned. But the strategy also works well at higher levels because you can combine it very nicely alongside things like boss rushing and delve sulfite farming. More on that later. So let's talk about the requirements first. Your build doesn't need much to kill essence monsters in uncrafted tier 1 maps, which is all you need to do. But that said, monsters with a lot of essences can be a bit tough at times, so this strategy is better suited to builds that have decent single target damage. And if your build moves fast, your profit per hour will go up proportionally as well. I will note that if you don't have very good single target, then you might want to skip the wildwood, as the wisp empowerment makes essence monsters pretty tough at times. Once you do get decent single target or doing low enough tier maps for your build, then you can even do the wildwood alongside it if you want. Map requirements are basically non-existent for this. You just need to have some tier 1 maps, and as long as you kill a few other mobs and the occasional quick boss, then you'll easily self-sustain maps at this tier. The only time you would ever need to potentially buy low tier maps is if you wanted to only run the best possible layout like Strand. If you don't mind mixing and matching a few layouts, then you probably won't ever need to buy these maps. You'll also want to pre-purchase or obtain some Remnants of Corruption. You can do this strategy without them, but your profit is much better if you do have and use these to corrupt essence monsters. More on that later. You'll also need at least 20 or so Chaos Orbs to begin, just to pay for the essence map craft at 2 Chaos a go. That's really just to get you started as you build your initial stockpile to sell. You'll have no trouble paying for this later if you just sell the occasional essence bundle for Chaos Orbs. The biggest thing really is that you'll need 54 Atlas passives available. This is an Atlas passive strategy primarily after all. Now that amount for 54 is for leagues that don't normally have Essence Craft available on the map device. If you're doing this strategy in a later league, watching this video in the future, that does have Essence Craft available on the map device, then you may only need 33 points instead, depending on how the tree might change. 54 Atlas passives is the equivalent of completing all of the white maps and about 14 or so yellow maps. Very attainable to do even for newer players, I think. And the good news is that by the time you have those points, you're very likely to be more than ready to blast white tier essence mobs. Finally, while not technically necessary, an essence tab will make this so much easier. Upgrading is way faster and selling is a bit easier to manage. You can do it with a regular tab, though of course you always need a premium tab for trading anyway. So let's talk the Atlas passives. You can start farming essences before you complete the full 54 point tree, but it'll only be a fraction of the profit per hour. The upside is that it'll basically cost you nothing to just kind of do this while you're building out that tree potentially. While you're setting up, I probably just recommend saving any remnants of corruption that you get. You'll get much more out of using them later on when the monsters have more and higher tier essences from your full passive tree. So you'll want all of the essence nodes, pretty simple, straightforward. They're all great. The only ones you won't want to pick up is these 2 little nodes that give you remnants of corruption in the base strategy. Though these can be used for remnant farming strategies I'll talk about later in the video. The real key really is that 2 Chaos Essence Map device craft. To unlock that in leagues that don't have it, you'll need the 7th gate keystone. To make 7th gate work, you need to put a point into each of the gateways on the tree. I'll link a tree in the description that does this for you with an optimized layout. If you're in a later league that has the Essence Craft again by default, then you can just skip the gates and just get the Essence nodes instead. Super straightforwards. For scaling this strategy into late game and what to spend more points on, check out the advanced essence farming section of this video. So let's talk about the methodology I used for my experiment to see how profitable this strategy is. So I ran a profit per hour test in white tier maps, and as always my approach is to give the best baseline that I can to set a very realistic and conservative expectation. As such, my approach was the following. I used a random selection of tier 1 through tier 4, including bad layout maps. You'll have much better results if you stick to good layouts, like Strand for example. The bad layouts are often twice as long as doing something like Strand. But I really wanted to average out the bad maps to the good to give you a good baseline if you were just doing a random selection of maps. These maps were mostly uncrafted. There might have been a few blue and rare ones in there, but mostly they were just uncrafted. You don't actually need to alch or anything here, as the essence rewards are unaffected anyway. Next up, I dropped my awakened gems and only used 5 gems or a 5 link. But honestly, it didn't really affect much, as low map tier essences should be very fast to kill on most builds by the time you get this strategy online anyway. Of course, when it comes to any strategy in Path of Exile, the speed and power of your build are going to affect things, so you can only ever just use this as a rule of thumb anyway. But I at least did try to nerf my character a bit. I cleared most of each map, and I did most of the quick bonus content available in each map, and bosses that were convenient to give a more realistic time per map. I did skip any really long bosses, and things like Blight encounters. I ended up doing 25 maps in the hour, so a bit under 2.5 minutes per map. If you think you can do faster, and you certainly can, then your profit will go up accordingly. I hid anything below Screaming essences from my filter and I just didn't bother to pick them up. You can pick up Wailing essences if you want, but they're a bit like picking up a single alchemy orb. If you do that, typically, then go for it if you like. Whenever I got a trade message while doing this, then I left my map and completed the trade. It's realistic that you'll be trading while doing this after all. I purchased the corrupted remnants that I needed in bulk for 1 divine. In Path of Exile you pay a premium for the convenience of bulk, so they're a little cheaper if you brought them in smaller bundles for chaos orbs instead, but that'll take more time. I'll discuss a remnant farming strategy later if you want to farm your own. You probably don't need 1 divine worth to get going, you could probably settle for just getting like 10 or 20. At the end I upgraded all of the essences that I could to deafening and shrieking where possible, and then I priced them, mostly pricing them at the cheaper end of what they can sell for. And of course I subtracted the cost of map crafts and the remnants used from the total profit. I didn't price the maps themselves, as you will easily self-sustain white tier maps with no effort, unless you skip everything but essence mobs. You could do that as a strategy by the way, and it might even be more profit per hour, but it would mean bulk buying strands or other maps. So with that methodology, which I think sets a very realistic baseline, in 1 hour I ended up running 25 maps, earning essences with a gross profit value of 1,257 chaos. I had total expenses of 188 chaos for map crafts and remnants, and that leaves a net profit of 1,069 chaos. Nice, or 4.97 divines. So just under 5 divine worth of essences for an hour's work. Of course, unsold essences aren't profit, so to see how well and quickly they sell, I set them at market price in bulk for a divine each. With this setup, I sold maybe 2 to 3 divine bundles per hour. I later tried pricing a little more generously, giving people like an extra essence for each divine that they paid, and this was a bit faster, but not instant. I really like this strategy for a few reasons. You A, have to make very few trades, and B, you can kind of like pre-price your essences. The price sticks to them as long as there's 1 essence left in the tab, and then when you build up enough to reach that bulk amount that you've listed, then, you know, after a short while, someone will message for them. Often you don't even have to retype the price after you make a sale. As long as there's an essence left over after that trade, the price is still listed on there, just waiting for you to restock. It's almost automated, which is sweet. All you need to do is come to your essence tab every now and then to do some upgrades. So to actually sell in bulk for divines, if you haven't done that before, you set the tab to public, and you at least need a premium tab for this, of course. And the essence tab works too and is a bit more convenient. You want to set it to each item individually priced. Then you right click the essence to price select negotiable or exact price, it doesn't really matter, and then select a divine orb. In the amount box you'll actually put a ratio though. So what we get for selling goes first, and what they get in return goes second. So we put 1 for 1 divine, and then a /, and then the amount of essences that they'll receive for that divine. So if they're getting 14 essences for 1 divine, you'll put 1/14. To easily price check, I recommend as always Awakened PoE trade, but you can do it manually through the trade site. I have found for the most part that the divine price listings are fairly accurate, but as always take a look at the list of actual listings and see if there's one outlier that's far cheaper, then that's maybe price fixing or someone who's just trying to offload some really quickly. If you need to make some quicker sales for gear upgrades or to get some liquid currency in your tab, then you can use pricing smaller bundles in Chaos instead. But I still recommend selling in bundles. You don't really want to sell single essences ever, except maybe for some of the really expensive ones. Check the Chaos price per essence with Awakened trade or with the trade site, but be aware that often there are a few much cheaper listings that are generally what I would consider fake. Skip these and try to see what the majority of essences are priced at. If you list them up and you get no sales, then just lower the price a little bit, or if you sell instantly, then you're probably underpriced and just adjust accordingly. With this Hatred essence, for example, you can see the price 11 Chaos is not real. Based on it being listed 6 minutes ago, it's probably someone underpricing for a very quick sale. So you could do that, but 12 chaos may be real here, as there are a few listings for that, but they probably also go for 13 chaos, especially in bulk, as that's what most of the listings are. Once you have your price decided on, multiply it by your bundle amount. So say, for example, 4 essences per bundle. So in this example, we might do 13 times 4, which is 52 chaos for a bundle of 4 essences. Then you put the ratio with your price first, what you get first, so 52 chaos / 4. If it was done right, the display will show the correct price per essence listed when you hover over it, 13 chaos here. But you'll only get messages for a minimum bundle of 4. If they don't sell after a couple of hours at that price, then come back and drop them by a chaos each, or even just nudge the ratio down a few chaos, which will instead show as a ratio again like this. To keep things simple, I just sell deafening essences in 1 divine bundles. There is some extra profit to be made if you also sell shrieking essences uncombined as some people want them, but it's more trades that you have to make and more essences to price check, so it's up to you if you want to make that effort. Next up, let's talk Remnant of Corruption strategy in your maps when you're getting your essences. Remnants of Corruption can be right-clicked from your inventory and used on an essence monster. There are a variety of outcomes when you do this, like randomizing the essences or upgrading them. As of right now, Remnants of Corruption go for about 4 chaos each in bulk. They're well worth using as they can increase the tier of essences, re-roll into more valuable essences, and even produce the corruption-only essences that are typically the most valuable ones. That said, you want to be a little smart when you use them, as if you just blast them on every essence monster you find, you probably won't make a loss, but you will eat into your profits. Everyone has a little bit of a different strategy with these, but here's mine. Use them on purple essences, as these turn into the corruption-only ones, always worth the gamble. Use them on any monster with a large number of essences for the chance to hit multiple upgrades. Any low value screamings to either upgrade to shrieking or re-roll into more valuable essences. And then I use on any high value essences at screaming tier for a chance to upgrade to shrieking. Remember that with the Atlas passives we have, if any one of the essences is shrieking, then it duplicates the entire monster and your entire essence stack, you get twice as many. So upgrading a high value essence from screaming to shrieking triples your profit and then doubles it again, 6 times the profit. This is the main reason why remnants are so good to use. But to be honest, since we kind of use them a lot, it's easy to say which essences I don't use remnants on. Monsters with 1 or 2 essences and at least 1 shrieking tier already, I just open them and let them double rather than risk the gamble. If you upgrade a single shrieking to a deafening, then you won't duplicate it. And in some cases that's okay, but a lot of the times you're just out the cost of the remnant. The other time I don't use them is monsters with only wailing essences. You're gambling a 4 chaos remnant to at best get your money back. And that's about it. Apart from those examples, just kind of spam them around. It helps when tinkering with your remnant strategy and refining it to get a bit of an idea of which essences are most valuable. Often it's things like loathing, contempt, and spite, in addition to the corruption-only essences, delirium, insanity, horror, and hysteria. So pay attention to the values and you'll adjust over time. If you want to farm your own remnants instead of buying them, there's something to keep in mind. A monster with a remnant is already corrupted and cannot have another remnant used on it. So you get your 4 chaos for the remnant that drops, but you miss out on the potential big wins of upgrading. That said, here's what you do if you want to farm your own. Allocate the 2 nodes on the right of Crystal Resonance for 20% remnant chance. And if you have at least 1 watchstone, buy compasses with the monsters have 50% remnant chance modifier. These are generally very cheap, so there's no real risk involved as long as they only cost about a sextant in price. Now let's talk about some advanced essence farm strategies. Scaling your essence farming into mid to late game maps as you get stronger and get more Atlas passives is very flexible, and it stays quite profitable. It pairs up very well with anything that wants you to spend less time per map overall and to blast a bunch of maps. To begin with, you can just add things like strong boxes, expeditions with extreme archaeology to do them quickly, for reroll currency and artifacts, things like that. You can also do things like capturing Einhar beasts. That also works quite well, as does sulfite farming for delving. You can also do June missions for betrayal item drops and to build up a betrayal board. Essences just don't really pair that well with juicing strategies that involve adding as many monsters and quantity to a map as possible. If a strategy wants you to spend like as much time as possible in a super stacked map, then essences don't really contribute much to that. You'll make less per hour from the essences themselves, the longer you spend in each map effectively, and the essence rewards don't really scale as you make the maps harder. The essence monsters don't really add like a ton of monsters to the maps either, so they don't tend to contribute to the juicing strategies all that much. Late game essence strategies pair extremely well with bossing, especially things like Maven witnessing map bosses to farm Guardian map drops, or even running Guardian maps themselves and doing Maven invitations with them. Boss rushing strategies generally involve running these maps quickly to do more bosses, and essences don't slow you down too much and they add a lot of extra profit per map. I like to pair bossing strategies with sulfite piles and shrines to make the maps faster, more profitable and more fun. They let you stack up buffs that you can take into the boss fight. I'll also block any slower content that I don't want to do that will slow me down from these strategies. I'll link an example tree you can use as a guideline in the description, but as always, customize this to your own tastes and to your build. And there you have it, folks, a rundown on a strategy that I really like, especially because of how well it pairs with bossing, which I'm a big fan of. Scales down to early endgame quite nicely for beginners, and that 5 div per hour baseline I hit in the test is really solid, and I can definitely see people going twice as fast if they stick to good layout maps and have a faster character. Hope you found this helpful and that it makes you lots of monies. That's it for now. I'm Ziggy, and thanks for watching.